we will be discussing meeting minutes and their importance in construction. Meetings happen on a very regular basis in construction. When we meet with others, it is important that all parties leave the room on the same page and ready to execute what was discussed. This is where meeting minutes come into play. It is important to take meeting minutes so that everyone can receive the meeting documentation. This serves as unaltered and unbiased information without any personal objectives in it. Everyone can now be held accountable when they receive meeting minutes, since everyone has concrete evidence of what was said in the meeting and what they need to do now. Minutes help all involved parties understand, review, and document what was said in the meeting with no discrepancies. The minutes serve as an unaltered and unbiased source of the information said at the meeting. This is important for any manager in order to ensure that all parties adhere to the plan and can be responsible to what was agreed upon. Lastly, risk is reduced since the discussion is recorded and unfair claims can now be disputed. When all three of these things are taken into account, the end result is a greater profit, which is something that everyone wants to maximize. So let's take a look at why good meeting minutes will directly result in a better understanding between parties, which is critical for a successful project. A project has many parties, all of which have their own goals and opinions for the project. These parties must communicate with each other in order for the project to flow, and good meeting minutes can eliminate discrepancies from these personal factors. Successful projects rely on techniques like this in order to achieve a clear understanding between parties. Only when good communication techniques such as taking good meeting minutes are established will the project be able to run smoothly. In order to understand how you take good meeting minutes, you have to focus before, during, and after the meeting. Before the meeting, it is important to send out an agenda beforehand. You can then use this as a template for your minutes to help all parties follow easier. It is important to include the time, date, and location, as well as a list of attendees of the meeting. Importantly, you should note that the more you can do before the meeting, the more you can participate and focus in the actual meeting itself. During the meeting, taking notes is key, and not trying to write down every word that is said. This way, you will catch what is important and not fall behind. It is extremely important to record all action items as well as major decisions. This documentation will prove helpful for all parties. Lastly, always clarify any questions you may have, as you are the one who is responsible for making sure that everyone has a clear plan of attack after the meeting. After the meeting, you must first review and clarify any questions you may have. Do not leave the room unsure of anything. Next, edit your minutes, focusing on action items and not discussion. Also avoid any personal observations, as this can lead to people distorting information. Most importantly, send out a copy to the attendees as soon as possible while the meeting is still fresh on everyone's mind.
Meeting minutes are essential to tracking and recording information in meetings. Here we will discuss meeting minutes that are taken during an OAC meeting. As we can see, the document has the date and time of the meeting, the attendees, and the previous business from previous meetings, as well as new business that has come up since the last meeting. Any items that have not been resolved from the previous meeting, such as item 4, which is highlighted red and labeled not resolved, will be forwarded to the current meeting minutes. It is also important to record what each party has said about the topic and to email the meeting minutes to all the attendees to make sure the interpretation of each item and the conversation about the item is agreed upon between all parties. This is good for recording information and for making sure that you're on top of any items that need to be resolved. As you can see, the items that are labeled green are resolved. The items that are labeled, that are highlighted red, are not resolved. There are different reasons for why each item may be not resolved, and so one of the two reasons would be waiting on an architect or waiting on owner approval. This is why OAC meetings are so important, because you get all parties in the same room to accomplish the goal and try and solve the problem.
Next, we will discuss how good meeting minutes reduce risk. First, they build trust since people know who is responsible for things as well as themselves. It also gives everyone a better idea of the project status. Less mistakes will be made since action items are recorded and people are held accountable for their work. Lastly, there is less of a chance for legal claims since meetings are now well documented and may solve any problems that arise. As discussed earlier, the end result of all of this is a higher profitability.
As discussed, good meeting minutes lead to trust, less mistakes, fewer claims, and ultimately more profit. Therefore, because meeting minutes are so essential to the construction process, we need to prepare before the meeting. Using the proper formatting, taking notes well during the meeting, and communicate minutes afterwards. So that way we have better understanding, more effective management, and reduced risk.